Stay tuned for the Health Literacy Show with Dr. Baruch and Heleese. We have Kaylah Miranda, who will be doing some live juicing, and Ricco Hill, who will be talking with us about From Sickness to Health in just a moment.
Great. Thank you, Heleese. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming on board with us. We do have a great show ahead of us. We have Heleese in the studio. Heleese, what's up this morning?
Nothing much.
Everything's good?
Yeah, hanging in there.
Great. And we have also Kaylah, who's going to be talking, but also juicing and teaching and empowering us from the faraway, beautiful land of Hawaii. How are you this morning, Kaylah?
So awesome.
You are so awesome. Great. And we have on Skype, via Skype, let me jump in here to the Skype scene. We've got our brother Ricco Hill. Good morning, brother Ricco.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, family.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. And we're just getting our volume level set here, brother Ricco. Everything is good. We're going to start off this conversation with you in that you are the star of the show, as we all are, but you're the star for the moment. How about that?
I don't know about that.
Brother Ricco, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where you from? What are you doing? And, what makes you so great that we would want to have you on this show, and you can't deny it because I said it now.
I like your style. You just jump right in. Well, I'm from that beautiful city where you all are, Washington, D.C. I'm from D.C. and sorry about that.
No problem. You're a popular man. We know you're popular.
It's early over here, but things start jamming right around 8 o'clock. Anyway, I'm from D.C. and I am an author of a few books. I have a passion for health, and I have a little show called From Sickness to Health that airs weekly on a Christian network, a global Christian network called 3ABN and Dare to Dream. And as I mentioned, it's called From Sickness to Health, and we've done about 26 episodes. And I am a health evangelist and health revivalist. So I travel the world sharing with people, and I like a word you used. You said empowering, because that's what this is really all about, is empowering people to take control of their own health.
Yes, definitely. And of course, you and I were introduced long before we met, and that I had the opportunity of meeting Brother Erskine, who's put me through and who's gone through similar training that you teach down there in, is it Arizona?
That's my base, but I go all over.
Okay. Great. And so he had exposed me to you and all the greatness that is you. And so I looked forward to the opportunity to meet you, and it's it's a good thing. So I'm glad we're finally coming together and we're meeting. And
yeah. And we had a chance meeting right there in the restaurant just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
That was special.
That was special. And I'm glad that you knew it was me, because I wouldn't have known it was you. I didn't see a picture of you.
Yeah.
But we also have Kaylah in the studio with us. And Kaylah, you tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what makes you so special and great? Kaylah?
Yes. I am from DC. I am a songwriter, writer, and designer. And I study the sciences, and I came into this lifestyle out of necessity.
Okay.
And it has evolved into such a high lifestyle that I never intend to share, but it just radiates, and then I end up in things like this, radio shows.
And believe it or not, she ended up in my restaurant, and I encountered her as well. So the restaurant is like the great meeting place. So
it is.
it's exciting. So I'm going to allow Heleese, because Heleese always she's the journalist. She's the one who has all the information. She has all the great questions, those burning questions. I'm going to let her dive into our conversation with Brother Ricco. And Heleese, I know I didn't need to say any more. You got it.
All right. Well, my first question, I was speaking with Dr. Baruch about you, Mr. Ricco Hill, and he told me that you are a medical missionary. So for our listeners who don't have an understanding of what a medical missionary is, could you explain that to us?
Absolutely. The terminology medical missionary can somewhat confuse people because you have two words put together that really might not be all that appealing to people. Number one, medical. When people hear medical, they think, well, medical, then that means you must be a doctor or some other type of healthcare professional. And then you've got missionary, which suggests or connotes that you're someone who travels to faraway lands. But really the terminology came in the 1800s when basically there was this whole reform and temperance movement that took place in this country where there was lots of alcohol. There was a surge of cancer and other lifestyle diseases that were coming up, and we did not understand the sanitary conditions that were necessary to promote health, nor did we even understand how nutrition played a part in it. It was just total ignorance, even though Hippocrates had said several hundred years ago, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. So basically there was basically a contingency of people that were coming out of various movements, particularly out of the church movement, who were not only traveling and going to faraway lands, but also just doing very simple things that relieve people of sickness and suffering and from death. And really, it was the forerunner to what we have as a hospital system, because you had people like John Harvey Kellogg, who was a medical missionary. Now, that name may ring a bell because Kellogg's, you hear that and you say, wait a minute, that's breakfast cereal. Well, John Harvey Kellogg was just way ahead of his time. He was the one who actually created the breakfast cereal, he and his brother, and they had what they called was a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. A sanitarium, and that was a name that never existed before, and they called it the Sands. And people came from all over the world to encounter medical missionaries, and they were not just doctors, because the medicine at that time was not what it is now. It was just in the beginning stages. And there were nurses, but there were also a contingency of people who just studied and understood the principles of health and actually went out and shared and evangelized using the health principles. So a medical missionary is someone who actually is passionate about the health of people, uses health to lead them into a whole health experience. And that means physically, mentally, and spiritually, and even socially.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure there was a time when not only were there not many hospitals, but there probably weren't hospitals that were made available to everybody. And so this medical missionary training probably was used a great deal here stateside as well, I'm sure, wasn't it?
Well, when you consider that back during that time in the late 1800s, early 1900s, doctors made house calls.
Yeah. And
that house call movement was really from medical missionaries who would go to the bedside of someone who was suffering from cancer and would do everything possible, primarily utilizing simple natural remedies as well as nutrition to help them to recover from health. And a lot of times, it wasn't anything that was highfalutin. It wasn't anything that was highly technical or technological or even scientific, really. It simply was just water therapy, the use of water. It was the use of nutrition and use of fruits and vegetables as poultices to actually draw out sickness and disease. So oftentimes, it was just going to the bedside of someone and utilizing that which was in the kitchen cabinet, inside the refrigerator, or wherever, just to bring healing. And there's a strong biblical foundation for that, because there was a king named Hezekiah who got sick, and he was told by the prophet to go take a fig and actually use it as a poultice on his boils, and it actually healed him. So we use things like cabbage and onions and eggplants and things that are very simple that are in people's kitchens to actually bring healing and health.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have Kaylah in the studio who's just come back from Hawaii. And how long has it been now, Kaylah?
5 years.
5 years since you've been back? No, 5 years.
No, 5 years in Hawaii and 2 months here.
2 months here? Okay, great.
2 months here.
Great. Okay. And you worked in a hospital, but it wasn't your traditional medical hospital. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I had the honor of, I was a patient at this hospital, and I came in with all my problems, and this woman really what I like about the natural medicine community is these doctors really spend 2 and 3 hours with you every time. And my first encounter there, we spent 8 hours together, and it was tonic after tonic. You're like in a friendly hostage situation. And as soon as she found out what was going on, I told her I wasn't using the bathroom. I'm having concentration issues. I have acne. I'm not sleeping. I'm just not on a high vibration. I'm sad all the time for no reason. I feel like I have no control over my life. And at the time I was in college, and I was struggling really hard in school. And what made me take the steps to seek help was, in school, when you're reading so much material, when you're reading so much material that's imposed on you, things that are buried in my mind really came up, because I had so much information coming in that everything that I wasn't paying attention to, the forces, the pressure, really made everything come up. And I felt like I had to deal with the emotional, the spiritual, the trauma, health, and succeed and move forward. So I needed a one-stop shop, and it wasn't therapy or anything. It was really, if I take care of my body, then I'm going to start there. And so this place is so majestic. It sits on a half acre, and I want to call it a Medi Spa. And there's acupuncture and infrared saunas and hot and cold tubs and a swimming pool and a beautiful kitchen with the shelves full of herbs. It's something off of a movie, really. And sometimes, one time, I went to my consultation and I followed everything that she told me to do. She made me Rejuvelax. She gave me all these tonics, sauerkraut. And over time, I just started going every Sunday, because I just needed to re-up on it was a hard reset every Sunday, and I was really grateful to go back and to know that I felt like I'd be aligned to my highest self every Sunday. And I also, so in exchange, I worked on her garden. I worked in the plants. I grew the neem. We put EM1 on the plants. I went to go pick seaweed to give minerals to the trees. And that was our arrangement. After a while, this woman stopped charging me, and I was working for her in exchange for healing. And we've evolved. One time, I got really sick because I was overeating, and I knew it wasn't a good idea, but I was like, I'm okay, but I wasn't okay. And I came over there, and I was in her house for 3 days doing enemas and tonics and really clearing out. And it's amazing how the thoughts really relate to the food that we take. Like, if I know that I have an unhealthy meal, I'm so sensitive now that I can expect bad emotions to come, and I could just really, like, Kaylah, it's just a meal. Just let it pass, and then I have to replenish myself.
But the thought came before the meal even. So the thought that put you in the space where you were thinking that this could be okay and it's all right for you to eat this was already the negative space that then facilitated the meal, which then facilitated the biological reaction. So it's just a chain reaction.
It is.
And you're vegan now, right?
Completely.
Completely
yes.
vegan. And Heleese is vegan for how long now, Heleese? We put you on record, you know.
I always say I don't keep track, but it's been probably 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. Okay, and we're gonna jump back to you, Brother Ricco, and what we want to ask you is a simple question, but maybe not so simple, and especially when it comes down to an answer to this. What's wrong with the health of us here in the United States of America? What is it that has happened that has caused us to be so sickly and embracing it and being okay with it?
That's a great question. So, okay, I'm going to start with what the last part of your question, where you say where we embrace it. And we do embrace it. And part of that, one of the things that I do in my lectures is I not only give people information, because people get information all the time. We have a constant barrage of information coming at us 24/7, right? But for some reason, we're still sick. Add to that the fact that we have, state-of-the-art hospitals. We have more doctors than we ever have had before. We have new technology. We have new drugs that are being patented and put on the market every single day, yet we're still sicker than we ever were before. In terms of statistics, we're seeing that 60% of Americans right now are taking at least one or more prescription drug. 10 to 20% are taking 5 or more. And you probably know someone who's actually popping 5 or more pills. So what's the problem? Well, part of it is we have a system of health. Well, let me back up. We have a disease managed system, not a healthcare system. We manage symptoms and we manage disease. And we, as I was mentioning, what I like to teach people is to be discerning. You have to have a clear mind. I really appreciate what Kaylah was talking about in terms of the food, mind, thought connection, because people aren't discerning. They don't understand what's actually happening. I'll give you an example. You have constantly your television commercials, who are the largest advertisers of most of your network news and your morning shows, right, on major network television. And basically what they're doing is they're pumping that thought in your head for your cholesterol, for your diabetes, and they couch it in those terms. So then therefore you end up saying, you know what, and I have people come to me all the time, Dr. Baruch, they come to me and they say, what can I do for my cholesterol? What can I do for my diabetes? I say, the first thing I tell them is, first of all, it's not yours. So give it back to the one who gave it to you. So they'll say that, what do I do? I say to them, you know what, and even within our African-American community, you have us saying, embracing arthritis as if it's a relative. When people start to have joint pain and flare up, they say, I can feel Uncle Arthur. Have you heard that before?
Yes, indeed.
Uncle Arthur. Now, when did we start embracing pain and inflammation as a family member?
Right.
So again, it's a chain of tradition and thinking, stinking thinking is what I like to call it. But it comes in so many forms at us in so many different ways. I always say to people, look, if a guy came and robbed your house, as negative as that is, the violation that you feel, would you then say to the police, you know what, my robber came around 7 o'clock and stole everything from my house? You wouldn't embrace a robber as someone that was positive. Yet we do that with heart disease and high blood pressure and things like that. So the first thing is the television and all of the communication and socialization and brainwashing and programming. I should mention this at this juncture. Before doing this, I was a television executive for MTV and Nickelodeon and for Turner Broadcasting. So I understand media and how media manipulates us. So that's number one. Number two, we have a meat addiction in this country. And it's driven by the Meat Council, is driven by the Dairy Council, and is driven by a lot of factors that all are, cashing in on the bottom line, but it's making us sick. In other words, you take things like processed foods. We eat 54% of our dietary caloric intake is from processed foods. And I'm talking about things in a box, in a bag, in a can. Things that you have to read major paragraphs to just know what you are eating. And when you're doing that, sickness is going to follow, because here's the thing. When farmers and grocers and manufacturers of food like substances got together, they decided, look, if we're going to make money, we need things to sit on a shelf for a really long time, right? So we've got preservatives, we denature the food, we take things out, we put things in, and we call it enriched. So therefore, you end up with people who have been so brainwashed that is actually food, with commercials and so forth, that they are consuming mass quantities of dead food. Wow. Food that is not living. Add to that, we like to sit and watch TV as a complement to it.
Yes, indeed. Heleese?
And speaking of family members, I was watching a clip from your show, From Sickness to Health, and you said a clever quote that I like. You said, genetics loads the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So are you telling me just because, my grandma had diabetes, or just because my uncle had high blood pressure, that I wouldn't have to suffer from those same illnesses?
Oh, my sister, you are warming up the fire over here. Don't get me started. Lifestyle diseases are only 25% of your genetics. 25%. So therefore, 75% of the sicknesses and the lifestyle diseases that we encounter are largely choice-based.
Wow.
We have chosen. So in other words, this is what we say: genetics only loads the gun, but your lifestyle, your choices, your daily choices are pulling the trigger. Now, we've said that for years, but now science has caught up with this little adage, and we have something called epigenetics. Epigenetics, and epigenetics is how your genes, how your cells will express themselves based on the environment and the things that you expose them to. Classic example, many African Americans are lactose intolerant. You'll find some Asians lactose intolerant. But whether you are African American, Asian, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, everyone is 100% casein intolerant. Casein is the protein that's found in milk. Everyone is intolerant to that. So therefore, when you introduce casein into the system, here's a classic example of epigenetics. When you introduce casein or dairy products, ice cream, cheese, milk, whatever it is, into the system, it turns on cancer like a light switch.
Wow.
This is a landmark study through T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the book China Study. And in that book, it showed some 800 million Chinese people that when they actually introduced this product into their system, it turned on cancer. When you actually take it out of the system, it turns off cancer. So basically, based on your question and that adage, people are turning on cancer every day.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
And another thing that stuck out to me when I was finding out more information about what you do is that you all focus on the relationship between physical health and spiritual wholeness, and you even relate it to direct verses from the Bible. So in terms of maybe providing someone with guidance on how they're eating, how their healthy lifestyle should be, is it a direct correlation to what's in the Bible, or is it based on what you all have learned from the Bible?
Oh, there is a direct correlation. The Bible is a book of health. Number one, it's a book of health. In fact, the Cleveland Clinic, which is the premier hospital that does most seminal work on cardiovascular health, they have said that if you want to have good heart health, you need look no further than the book of Daniel. Because in the book of Daniel, Daniel 1 starts out with him insisting upon having a plant-based diet. So it comes directly from the Bible. I'll give you a couple of examples, if I may. First of all, we understand that we go with 10 principles. 10 principles of health. And nutrition is just one. But all of these are are directly, inexorably linked to your spirituality. You can't get around it. What you eat will affect how you think. How you think will affect how you actually, what you worship and what you make important in your life. If you don't get enough sunshine, well, you know what? You lack vitamin D. You don't get enough serotonin. You actually will have a mood issue. Your hormones will be affected. Well, the sun, is likened to, according to Malachi chapter 4 and verse 2, God is referred to as the Son of Righteousness. So if you don't get sun, whether it's S-O-N or S-U-N, you are missing out on vital things that promote health. A person cannot fight cancer if they have low sun exposure vitamin D. A person cannot fight cardiovascular disease if they don't have that. So here's a wonderful text I'll give you that really sums it up, and we use this quite a bit. It's found in it just flew out of my head for a second there. It's 26 verse 2, found in Proverbs. Thank you. Proverbs 26 verse 2. I had to go into a space way back in my brain. Proverbs 26 and verse 2, and it basically tells you that disease does not come without a cause. Now that's a powerful principle when you think about it. Disease does not come without a cause. In other words, disease is not random. It's not arbitrary. It doesn't come into a room of 50 people and say, who am I going to pick on today? Disease has to be invited into the system. So if you're not eating the right foods, then you are inviting disease. If you're not getting sunshine, you're inviting disease. If you don't get enough sleep, you're inviting disease into your system. And finally, I would just close with this on that question, and I think it's an excellent question. Right from the very first chapter in the first book of the Bible, it says that your food will be fruit, nuts, grains, and seeds, a plant-based diet. And now we have thousands of studies that corroborate the validity of a plant-based diet for not only reducing risk factors, but also reversing heart disease and cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when you bring in and you introduce the idea of the Bible, and you think about the time that the children of Israel were in Egypt, as the story has been told, there were plagues that had overcome the children. And we look up today, and it is a plague. These sicknesses have become a plague for us.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And talk to us about that, about the connection, or is this of biblical proportion that we're seeing what's taking place, in the United States in particular, but across the world, the amount of sickness. And is this sickness the manifestation of evil people?
Oh, wow.
Or not?
Wow, you know what? Yeah, I didn't know we was going to get this deep this morning. It's before 9 a.m. over here. But since you want to go there, let's go ahead and go all the way there. Well, let me just frame it this way. First of all, you talked about Egypt, and you talk about the plagues, and people know that back then there were 10 plagues that were unleashed on Egypt as God was extricating his people out of Egypt. And they fell upon them. And then he said something to his people there in Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26. He says, if you hearken to my voice, if you listen to the statutes, if you listen to the health laws, if you listen to the sanitary laws, the sanitation laws, if you listen to just the laws on hygiene and how to take care of your body, if you listen to these laws, he says, I will allow none of the diseases that were upon the Egyptians to come on you. That's what he said. And then as they went through and journeyed through the wilderness for 40 years, it says of them, not one of them, millions of people, not one of them got sick. Not one. Those who listened. Now, those who didn't, they fell by the wayside. But those who listened, they never got sick. Now, we understand that those were 10 plagues, but in the last days, there are going to be 7 last plagues. We know that from the book of Revelation. But I want to just point this out, because you said, is it evil people? Well, here's the thing. There's a thing that's taking place, and it's powerful, and I share it in my talks. And if I could summarize it, because it's really extensive, but if I could summarize it, I'd summarize it this way. We are experiencing what is called greenhouse gas emissions. And, the Bible does tell you that the love of money is the root of all evil. And what is really driving our sickness is the love of money. Why? Because basically, where is this greenhouse gas emission coming from? How are we increasing the CO2 in our atmosphere? What is causing climate change? Why is this last year and this year the hottest years on record? Well, it's because we have an addiction to beef. We are supplying the world with livestock, beef in particular, chicken is also, but beef especially, because when you have cattle, now listen to this, this is powerful when you think about it. The Bible says that the cattle are supposed to eat grass, and they're to eat grass alone. But because we actually feed them soy, and we take roadkill, and we take other dead cows, and we grind those up, and we feed them to cows also, it has destroyed their system, and it gives them, with them having 4 stomachs. Now, can you imagine how much gas that is? 4 stomachs. So because of flatulence, it is causing more greenhouse gas emission than trucks, planes, ships, cars, all put together. 51% of the amount of greenhouse gas emission is actually being produced from cows. Wow. That we are slaughtering to actually make hamburgers. Now, having said that, that's actually changing our climate. All climate scientists know that. Now, because that's happening, it's now causing things to happen in the world, not the least of which cancer and other lifestyle diseases, but it's also affecting our environment. I don't know if you've seen it, but thousands of animals around the world are dying. In the fishes, in the fishes of the sea, the cattle are dying, they're sick. Everywhere you look, these birds are falling out of the sky, and it's all directly pointing to this one thing, to the extent that the World Health Organization has said that it is a must now, that we must stop eating meat if we are to change this condition. It's powerful when you think about it. So my final thing I would say in terms of that is, going back to the Bible tells us in Isaiah 26 and verse 9, it says, when the judgments are on the earth, the people will learn righteousness. In other words, to just break that down, it means when you start to see these things happening, when everything's dying around you, and when people are so violent because of even what they have in their diets, then you will know that that way is the worst way and there's a better way.
Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal to make that connection. And I think, I asked that question on purpose to bait you, because I knew that it was going to bring it out. And there's something else that I look at. And, I look at the fact that there seems to be an attack on a bloodline. And you're welcome to not engage the conversation, but I'm concerned and interested in hearing your perspective on what's going on with this seemingly purposeful, directed attack on a bloodline of people, and I say it with the backdrop of babies are not born criminals. Babies are not born dope addicts. Babies are not born, with all of these negative attributes that seemingly are being embraced by specific cultures here in the United States and I'm sure abroad. But there seems to be an attack. Let us now take the culture of a people. We will take that culture and reconfigure that culture, present that culture back to them with a virus. And now all of a sudden, people who had family structure, who had order, who were spiritual, who were upright, who were raising really, intelligent and capable children, have now, over the course of the last 40 and 50 years, have completely fallen apart. And so my question goes beyond the bounds of food, but to the thought and the conversation about a bloodline. Is there something going on with the bloodline of people of color, of people of deep melanation, that that makes us a target? And if we are a target, why are we a target? And who is targeting us? And it's your floor, Brother Ricco.
You just keep going deeper, man.
Well, we try. It's early in the morning. All these thoughts have been brewing overnight.
You have to bring me into the studio for these kind of questions. I need to look in people's eyes and see if there's conviction in what I'm saying.
There you go.
It's all good, man. Okay, here are my thoughts, and they are not exhaustive by any means, but in the time frame that we have here and the format that we have, I'll just speak to it briefly. I believe that African people all over the African diaspora are people who are natively, naturally, innately spiritual people. I believe that if we were to trace it all the way back, going back into the Bible, we would see that we were the original people. Not out, I'm not one who exalts Egyptology simply because of how they went astray on many, many things, and not the least of which, when God brought his people, when God brought his people out of Egypt, his people, he said, I need you to be on this better diet, not the one that they were eating in Egypt. Right. Because the one they were eating in Egypt was the one that was causing the disease and the sickness. In fact, Egypt, I know that a lot of people have a serious affinity for Egypt, and so do I, in terms of the higher learning and universities and all the mathematics and sciences. It's beautiful. But just in terms of from the spiritual connection, God's people, he said, I have something special for you. And he brings them out of Egypt for that reason. They long to go back to those diets. And he says, no, those diets are bad for you. You'll find that in Numbers chapter 11 and 14 through 14. So just looking at those people who came out and who were the purveyors of truth, who were the protectors of the oracles of God, these were people who God says, look, I'm giving you a special diet. I'm giving you you have a special lineage. You have a special message. And I believe from the time, you cannot look at any other people. Now, I don't care about who is Israel. Mm-hmm. I don't care about what is being portrayed as the original folks who were coming out of Jewry. But I know, based on the history and what takes place even to this day, there's an attack on those who have a superior understanding, a superior knowledge. I mean, just think about throughout slavery, how people were able to maintain their spirituality under such conditions. And we still have it today. That's the evidence that I see. That's the evidence, even though, and I'm not knocking Jewish people, I believe that they are somehow, derived from. However, just as we, you take a black man and an Asian woman or a Latino woman, you got something else. But, but the original Asiatic black man, I believe, has had a special purpose in God's eyes. And if we look at this spiritual warfare, there is an attack and has always been, whether it's coming in through media, through food, through culture, through music, through whatever it is, and it is an attempt to tear down that bloodline.
That's pretty good. We're gonna turn that into a commercial, Brother Ricco. I like that answer. We'll let you see it first, though.
I appreciate that.
Okay. We're actually gonna jump and shift a little bit. Kaylah is about to expose us to some of the great juicing technique that she learned there at the Healing Center in Hawaii. And Kaylah, why don't you set it up for us? What is it that you are going to be preparing for us?
So I'm going to make a juice. Before I make this juice, I really do want to reply to what Dr. Ricco said, because that is really going to prepare me to why I make these juices. And what I've learned these last 5 years, and what I feel makes me so cool, is that I understand that when there is disease in my life, when there is something in my life that is going down, I know that I am such a majestic being that there's a discrepancy in my body. There is a blockage in my body. There is some type of synapse going, something's not connecting right in my body. The body is one flow in one spectrum. So I'm able, that has really given me the control. There's a quote that says, I don't solve problems. I change my thinking and my problems solve themselves. And yo, that's so real. That's so real. And especially in our community, when there is disease in our life, there's limitation, there is addicted family members, there's sick family members. Every time that we have trauma in our life, well, let me just say my life, and let me just keep it in my scope, but everyone take application as you will. When there's diseases in my family, when there's trauma in my family, I recognize that my choices affect how I want the outcome of that trauma to be. And there is an illusory term, they. And I feel like that's really prevalent in our community. Oh, they passed this bill. Oh, they turned off the light. Like, they is such like this higher cloud. I was watching this professor, and he was really breaking it down to me, and that really changed it. I am they. We think like these higher, the government and the system and da-da-da-da. We are they. And we are strong enough, like how Dr. Ricco was saying. I know I'm a magical person. I know where I come from. I know my lineage. They don't have power over us. Mm-hmm. And we have enough power to really make ourselves happy no matter what they are doing. And what I was really struck by last year was a book by Gabriel Cousins, and it's called Conscious Eating. And I was in Hawaii last summer, and this is really when I started making the exit strategy, like I need to go home, was all the shootings that happened in DC last summer. And when I live in Columbia Heights on 14th Street, DC, and you are exposed to everyone. You're exposed to entrepreneurs and scientists, and my friends have really diverged off in every single life path, and I'm looking around at the neighborhood. These killers are not coming from a home of wholesome diets. Why? Because I know some of them, and we're cool. And they don't, we have Arizona tea for 99 cents, high fructose corn syrup. And I want to share an excerpt from that book, that what happened is a social worker in Ohio, Barbara Reed, was a probation officer, and she found that when she switched the offenders, she was dealing with juvenile students. When the offenders switched from fast food, when they switched to a whole foods diet, 252 teenagers in her caseload stayed out of court as long as they maintained themselves on a wholesome diet. And Americans have 125 pounds of white sugar per year, with the juvenile delinquents in custody average about 300 pounds per year of sugar. Wow. And what does sugar do? Sugar affects the liver, and liver, when it is out of balance, when it's too spiked up, it causes anger. And so yes, like last summer I was thinking, I'm like, wow, like this is all biochemistry. Like I don't have to wait until a system gets its life together to save my life or my family's life or my friend's life, my community's life. So what I'd like to really, my point of this, there is not a problem that we cannot solve ever. The answers are really within us, and it is when we see these super brilliant people, wow, like they so smart, wow, that was such a brilliant idea. When we see these people that we really admire and that really hit home, we are an extension of them. The only difference is they are turned on. And we have to turn ourselves on, which segues into the juicing, because what is on? On is ingesting live food with enzymes. And the difference between raw juicing and box juicing is that in order to maintain shelf life, that's what pasteurized means. Pasteurized means they have to cook these vegetables and fruits, even orange juice, so that it can stay in a box. And really, if you break it down, it's just going to be sugar and water, because there is no enzymes in those boxes. So enzymes are really the protein, are what really carries the chi, what really is God's intelligence coming into our bodies. Our bodies are a vessel, and if we were to charge our bodies with enzymes, literally there is nothing we don't have access to. So I and my family, but Kaylah, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? I don't have the money. We have paper, we have brainstorms, and we have enzymes. And that sounds so simple, but really, if we are able to hone in on the problem, and as much time we spend thinking about the problem, we could really spend a lot of energy in the solutions, and with the knowing and the trust in ourselves, to shifting from having faith into really having faith into ourselves, and knowing that we can solve anything and have it done. We are so incredible, and the way human evolution is expanding, and the fact that we can even talk about this on radio, we are really coming into an era where human capacity is expanding. And so that is part of my mission, is to really understand that whatever disease, whatever problem we have the answers. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting. I don't know what they are doing. I don't care what they are doing. I am they. I love my community. I love my family. So it's about us taking our little intelligence and permeating it and letting it grow, and so that becomes the majority. So what I do in the way of juicing is literally I juice so that I can have the enzymes, so that I can think clearly, and that I can think with the intelligence of God. So today, we're going to make ginger ale. And I love this ginger ale. And it's not your everyday ginger ale. I was in school and I needed a tonic. And I just went to the farmer. This is a recipe that I just went to the farmer's market, and that's all they had was cabbage, apple, and ginger, and red cabbage, and which is sweet. Ooh, you guys are not going to see it, the listeners right now, but if you juice red cabbage, I'm a color person. Mm-hmm. If you juice red cabbage and then you put that pulp in water, it's the most beautiful blue. The most beautiful indigo. So, okay. So it's red cabbage, Granny Smith apples, ginger, and tonic water. And so that's what I'm about to go set up right now.
All right. The setup. What a great setup, Kaylah.
Indeed. All right, let's do it. I'm about to do it. Okay.
Indeed. Okay. Well, we're going to allow her to do that, and we're going to jump back into my conversation with you, Brother Ricco, as she prepares us for this exciting adventure in the living juice and enzymes that we're going to partake of. We apologize, Brother Ricco, you won't be able to partake of this batch, but we are going to bring you into the studio so that you can, in fact, be a part of what it is that we're doing. So let's jump back in, Brother Ricco. Tell us, you talked about the medical missionaries, and the medical missionary work that you're doing is you're training and you're teaching people you're replicating self, is how I understood it. But tell us one, how you got into it, and what it is, what the medical missionary is, as far as what does this person then have the power and authority to do out in the midst of the folk once they've gone through your training?
Oh, good question. Well, okay, so basically, I want to make it pretty clear that we're not telling people to go and be doctors. Doctors are special. They're much needed in our societies and so forth. But the medical missionary, and we call our trainees, we call them CHAT, which CHAT, which stands for Community Health Advocate Trainers. Community Health Advocate Trainers, or Community Health Advocate Teams. And we have teams all around the nation. And these people who have gone through the training, they become advocates for the health of their community. Now, who would disagree that there's a need for advocacy on behalf of the health of communities? Certainly, communities that suffer from food deserts, who have such a disparity in the type of health care that they receive, namely many of our communities of color. So we train people to actually become advocates on behalf of people's health. Now, we look at 10 principles, and I will give them to you very, very quickly. 10 principles that anybody can teach and anybody can use. First of all, trust more and stress less. 70 to 90% of people who go to all hospital visits or office visits are stress related. Americans are stressed out, and they lead to all of the leading lifestyle diseases, including heart disease, stroke, and so forth. Number 2 is refreshing rest. Having refreshing rest. It's a law. And the thing that people need to understand is that these principles that I'm mentioning, they are laws, and most people have no idea that they exist, and they certainly don't live by them. But we need sleep. You go without sleep, then your cells begin to die. And it doesn't matter how much good nutrition you get into your body. If you go, and there's now sort of a global phenomenon with this online multiplayer gaming that's taking place around the world. People stay up for 3 and 4 and 5 nights straight, and they are saying that they get up from their chair and they drop dead. Why? Because they didn't get sleep. But we go further, and we show people, now who could not help people to know the basic components of a good night's rest and the difference between sleep and rest. Then there's enjoy sunshine, making sure that you get adequate sunshine daily. In fact, Dr. Baruch, we say that these are the doctors that make house calls, or you need to visit them every single day. The 4th one is nutrition. The 5th one is exercise. Everybody knows about those. Number 6, water. People actually underestimate the healing powers of water. Living temperately. And what is that? What is temperance? Most people don't know what living temperately is. Number 7. Number 8 is fresh air, or invest time in others. How are social circles? How do we have a community of people like us? Statistics show that if you have 3 friends who are unhealthy, who don't work out, who don't eat right, you are, 60 to 70% more likely to be unhealthy, overweight, just like them. So our social circles play a part. But not only that, how do we give of our time? What about volunteerism? It shows that when we actually extend ourselves to other people, when we help in some way, whether it's in their health, in their finances, whatever, when we give self-sacrificially, it actually increases our hormones and our white blood cells, our T cells, and it actually increases our ability to stave off sickness and disease. So actually giving, caring about other people, investing time in them is actually good health. Number 9 is fresh air. People don't know how to breathe, Doc. It sounds crazy, but people don't know how to breathe. So when our medical missionaries go through our training, they actually teach people all of these principles, including how just to breathe. Most people are shallow breathers. Shallow breathing leads to lifestyle diseases. And then finally, the 10th one is educating yourself. Educating yourself about your own body. What I tell people is we all need to be our own CEOs of our bodies. And that is not chief executive officer, but chief executive organism. In other words, a chief executive officer knows the people who work for him. He knows what his workers do. Most people, Doc, don't know their workers. And your workers, my workers, are your heart, your brain, your lungs, your kidneys, your pancreas, your liver. If you don't know what they do, you're more inclined to be sick. Now, how did I get into this? I trained as a gospel medical missionary. And that is, we never separate the spiritual man from the physical man, because it's a whole man. And where do we find that physical or that spiritual understanding? We find it from Scripture. So there's something that doctors don't do, and there's something that ministers don't do. But a medical missionary brings both of them together, the physical healing and the spiritual healing for a whole person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and it ties everything in. And I remember that when I went through the medical missionary training, how important those were, yet how simple they are, and how many times when you get a hold of and you can champion and master those areas, how sickness leaves. And that's real critical. And I can just imagine the number of people that get sick and are looking for a pill or looking for some major procedure to be done by some medical doctor or some pharmaceutical drug that they're taking. They're looking for some major thing to happen outside of the realm of what they control.
Right.
That they then they listen to that conversation and they're taken aback, because it's like, well, wait a minute. How is that going to work? I got diabetes. I need some chemicals. I need a pill. You need to give me a pill. And then you and I know that most of us are led to believe that as a result of genetics, we now have these diseases as opposed to lifestyle. And you explained that so eloquently earlier, that you talked about the fact that it's not, in fact, the case that the reason why we're sick is not because of the genetics. It loads the gun, but of course the lifestyle pulls the trigger. So we're going to ask another question of you, and then we're going to get ready for our juicing experience over here. And that is, what got you into this? You were into the world that you were into, and that might have predated your MTV and other work that you were doing. But what made you jump into this? Was it some crisis, or was it your motivation to see people get better and be that change agent, or both? Come with it.
All right. I in terms of what was the impetus or what was the catalyst that sort of propelled me into doing this, it was a series of things. But I was, and I always tell people when I give my testimony, my story, I as a television executive, I was a vice president. So I was in the senior management, and I was making a lot of money. And, I like for people to know that, that I didn't leave, the executive world, the corporate world, to go make more money. Because, there's not a lot of money unless you decide that you're going to go be a doctor, but I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is training and discipling people to do the very simple things that bring healing. So upon leaving corporate America and leaving a six-figure job, I was dedicated to actually going down this path. Now, how did it all get started? I noticed that while being an executive, and that this was for many, many years, almost 20 years, of actually, doing very, very well in my career, I on the weekends, I was doing this. And in every chance at work, I would tell somebody, oh, you got that? Why don't you try this? And I saw that my passion was greater there than it was for making TV shows, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
But it all started when my mother had cardiovascular disease. She had heart disease. She had triple bypass heart surgery. She was, for years and years, she was on a diet that was facilitating all of this, unbeknownst to her, as in the case for most people. But I started researching to help my mother. She started literally dying at the age of 50. By the way, that's the time when most people start to break down. your body at that point decides, you know what, we've had enough, and you start to break down. And she did in that exact same way. So I started studying, and I noticed that a plant-based diet, juicing for her, got her a juicer, helped her to get off her medications. She started working with some medical missionaries, and I watched how they worked with her, and how she was doing well over 10 prescriptions per day. Imagine that type of toxicity on the liver. But just in 18 days, she was cutting out the medications. She was getting better. Her complexion was being restored. Life was coming into her. And that caught my attention. And I made the change myself. And I noticed that I had more energy. I didn't need as much sleep. And then, as a result of all those things, I said, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to actually go through? And I left corporate America. I basically still had years on my contract. And I asked them, I said, I want you to pay me and let me go. I want to go and do another thing. And it worked out. I won't go into the whole testimony right now, but it was powerful how I was able to, God led me to start doing this and then traveling around. And I'm somewhere different every week, either training people, doing seminars, and so forth. And I'm watching how people's lives are being changed. And that's the powerful thing. But now, as you mentioned, it's all about discipling and replication. Because, when I decided beginning of this year, if I keep up this pace, I'll be dead in a year. So instead, now I'm looking to actually train individuals to do what I do, to go into people's homes, to do seminars. So once they're trained and certified, I actually almost function as a service for them, to send them out to places who call me. And I send them out, and they either teach, they actually will go and stay with someone, they'll go and help someone get better, they'll live with them if necessary for 3 months or whatever amount of time. But the main thing we focus on is just the education. Educate. Getting before people and letting them know these very simple things that they can do to have a lifestyle change and to have greater, better health.
Wow. Your answers are so thorough, and they leave so little room to, find, well, what about this? Because you cover it all, and that's really what we need. We need more people who are thorough and more people who are really genuinely concerned about helping people get well. And what we're going to do now, Brother Ricco, you're going to hear a little noise in our background. We're about to juice some fresh, was that ginger and apple?
Ginger, cabbage, and Granny Smith apples.
Yeah. So we're going to make our own ginger ale over here. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you're not, you've gotten the recipe. So there'll be folk, all over Arizona that are going to be screaming about, Ricco's ginger ale. Here we go. Kaylah. Now, what are you doing? What are you going to juice first?
Okay, so I'm going to juice our apples first.
Okay. We're going to plug in the juicer first. There we go. And while you're juicing the fruit and vegetable there, tell us about maybe the benefit of them to us.
So the pancreas acts like a bank of the enzymes, and your pancreas is the one that can really let you know if you can have cooked food or what kinds of foods you can have. Because if you're broke, then that's when you really need to start juicing. And when the enzymes in the pancreas get tapped out, they start to take from other organs that are already fully budgeted. These organs already have a full schedule to do, so that's when a lot of diseases come in. Eventually, let's say it's a chain reaction. If your pancreas goes out, then your stomach goes out, your colon goes out. The last organ is, and a lot of disease like dementia, is when you need your brain. You're taking enzymes from your brain just to digest your food. So what this is, it's all feeding every single organ, but in particular
The cabbage and the ginger, they're really good for the pancreas, the stomach, and the small intestine. And that's a lot of, I do believe that the condition, or just in my own experience, the condition of my gut is the condition of my brain. My gut is my second brain. Ooh, it's going crazy. Okay. So I like feeding my organs and just making sure that my bank is up, my enzyme bank is up. That's just really important. I think clear. I have a lots of energy. Lots and lots of energy comes from things like this.
Struggling with that ginger, huh?
Yeah, but it's getting there. Now, like 2 days into juicing, when my body's no longer paying attention to food, it does turn into like a power cleaning house. And all of the proteins that are meant to digest, they just go in, and I feel like it's like a spring cleaning, but of the inside of my body. But nonetheless, it's good to have like this kind of maintenance once a day. I like having a juice once or twice a day, no matter what.
Great, great. And about how do you gauge, like how much cabbage to how much apple to, how do you work that out so that we are creating the right balance? Because
Okay.
I'm sure balance makes a difference in all of this.
It does. I like to do, well, red cabbage is really sweet, and so is granny apple. It depends on if I really want to use it as a digestion tonic, then I'm going to put in more ginger. Apples, I really use more so for taste than nutritional value, but Granny Smith, in my experience, have the most nutritional value, unless they're fermented, like fermented apples, that has a lot of nutrients. I do more cabbage than anything.
Okay.
I do more cabbage than anything.
Okay.
But I feel like as long as if we make it in a juice, then at that point, if all three ingredients get on the juice, then I gauge it by taste.
Okay.
I gauge
Okay.
it by taste. As long as you get a good amount of cabbage in, or if you really want to have a digestion tonic, then have it, make it spicy and put a lot of ginger in it. But,
Okay. Well, I can smell it.
Right?
I can smell the ginger. I can smell the apple. I don't know that I smell the cabbage, but I definitely can smell the ginger. We are here on the Dr. Baruch Health Show with Heleese, and today we've got Sister Kaylah who's juicing for us, and we've got Brother Ricco from Arizona who's educating us and breaking it down so that we can know what we need to do. And this is again what we got into this business to do. We wanted to educate and empower you, the audience, so that you could make better decisions with regard to your health. So we are having a juicing time over here. Kaylah, how we look? Is it about there?
Yes. Oh, we need about 2 more minutes. I'm gonna put some more apples in it.
Okay, great. And we are juicing over there cabbage, that's purple cabbage,
Yes.
and Granny Smith apples, and ginger. And we're making our own ginger ale. And this is without artificial flavors and colors and preservatives. There's nothing but benefit that we're going to derive from this juicing experience that Kaylah's taking us into.
Organic whole food. Okay. Almost.
Okay.
Now, when I do juicing cleanses and things like this, it's really good to work with a partner.
Okay.
It's really good to work with a partner. If somebody take the night, makes the juice at the night so that everyone could wake up to a juice in the morning. Because juicing when you're hungry isn't a good look. You
Okay.
gotta have constant flow of juices. So to do it with more than one person frees other people's time up. It's less stressful.
Okay. That's right. Homemade ginger ale right here.
Is there somewhere that you recommend people buy their groceries from, since you have to have it in bulk, you have to have so much produce?
That's true.
You grow it in your backyard. That's where you get your vegetables
Yeah,
from.
I think Dr. Doc will answer that better, because I like, I save up and I'm like, okay, I'm about to do this juice cleanse. But I heard I do. But the co-ops do work with you.
Sure.
The co-ops work with you. What I did in Hawaii was I volunteered at farms. That's what I did, and then they gave me boxes of juicing stuff after, and that's how I got it done. I haven't found that here yet. Oh, there is a company. When I'm done juicing, I'll get the name. They deliver a box of organic produce for a family of 4 for $55.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
All right, we're gonna let you bring that to a close there and add the other ingredients that you need to it. And actually, I'm gonna jump back to you, Brother Ricco, and ask you a question about juicing. What role does juicing play in the healing program that you put people on? Is juicing a part of your teaching?
Absolutely, because when you juice, basically what you're doing is you're extracting all of the enzymes that Kaylah has mentioned. You are extracting all of the super nutrition in it, because see, when we eat, we're not actually feeding our stomachs. That's a misconception. We have no teeth in our stomachs, so we're not feeding our stomachs. We're actually feeding ourselves on the cellular level, and everything is based on good cell health, because you're constantly, it's like building a building. If you use faulty material, then you will have a very shoddy and very weak structure. However, when you actually are building with good material, strong material, then you build a strong body. So therefore, when you juice, you are getting super nutrition into the cells quickly. It takes 15 to 20 minutes when you actually use juice for it to go into the cell. And when someone's fighting cancer, they need nutrition fast. And as we teach our health advocates, is to get nutrition in and toxins out just as fast. So therefore, we use the 7 channels of elimination and to take toxins out of the body while putting good nutrition into the body at the cellular level. Then there's juice smoothies that people are doing a lot of now, which is great, because juicing is slowly, steadily becoming the new coffee, because it really is a more genuine stimulant than coffee is. Coffee, of course, affects the adrenals, whereas when you do like green smoothies with kale and things like that, it goes into the cell, but also you get the soluble and insoluble fiber, which brings down the glycemic index of your meals after that. But also it helps to make sure that you're floating rather than sinking, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I know what you mean, indeed. And I think it's so important, health and wellness. And I heard Kaylah mention something about the stomach and it being maybe she mentioned the second brain. Have you heard that concept before, Brother Ricco?
In fact, I teach it. The stomach is the second brain, and it's because we have the second largest cluster of neurons, which means we have cognitive activity that's taking place in the stomach. And most people don't realize that. In fact, science didn't know that until just a few years ago, that there's something called the microbiome. And the microbiome is an ecosystem of bacteria. And if we don't have that balance of 80 good, natural, healthy bacteria or friendly bacteria to 20% of the bad bacteria, then we have an overgrowth of the bad, and it's precipitous from that point on, and it overtakes the good, friendly bacteria, and you end up with all types of diseases. but that good friendly bacteria, it feasts upon what you all are drinking, but namely, specifically, when you actually get the fiber in there. And if I know that you put the ginger in there, and people need to be doing more of the prebiotics to feed that second brain rather than to go to even an antibiotic. And many people are doing antibiotics now, should be doing more prebiotic or probiotics.
Right, right. Yeah. I was doing some research the other day, and I looked into work that was being done by, I think it was Duke University, and they were doing, they had determined, at least the information that was shared with me, made me know that Duke had determined that your body is made up of 90% bacteria and 10% cells. And oftentimes we think more so of the cells than we do the bacteria. And the
Right.
bacteria not only, of course, help with the immune system and maintaining balance and supporting, the body systems, but they talked about the bacteria and the work that the bacteria does to help resolve and mitigate stress. And one thing in particular is they said that they took, in this experiment, they took these rats, or maybe it was mice, and they gave the mice the really good level dosages of this good bacteria. And the other group of mice did not get this really good bacteria that they were being supplemented with. And they took the mice who did not get the good bacteria, and they put them in a bucket of water, and they watched them attempt to swim as long as they could. And it was a very short period of time before those mice gave up and almost drowned. They said they didn't let the mice drown. They pulled them out of the water. But it was a very short period of time as compared to the group that had this really good bacteria that was supplemented in their diet. They had the motivation to live, and they didn't have the high stress levels, so they were really aggressive about maintaining life. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So then you can alter somebody's desire to live. You can affect somebody's desire to live by their diet. You can affect somebody's desire to live if you remove the amount of bacteria in their diet. So it is, or increase that bacteria. So that's really, it's really interesting how much of this we're not familiar with, and how much of this affects us that we're not familiar with. And I'm sure you can expound on the whole idea of the bacteria and how that bacteria it plays a part in us being healthy, us being intelligent, us being able to vibrate at high spiritual levels. And that was my setup. Ricco, it's on you.
All right. I really appreciate that. Having that understanding, which is, you begin to see the need for our communities to be educated about these things. Most people have no concept, no idea of what takes place in the gut. They have no idea about this is considered by science to be the second brain. But again, going back to scriptures in the Bible speaks of the very fact that, your belly can become your God. Right?
Yes.
Your belly can become your God.
Yes.
So therefore, it actually is what you put in your stomach can actually affect how you worship and how you see God and how you see yourself. And if you have a low estimate of a higher power, it only reduces your estimation of yourself in essence. So what we have is a connection of the stomach and the brain by the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve travels up the esophagus all the way up to the brain. And all along that hollow corridor, you have clusters of neurons. Those are brain cells, right? And when you actually put good nutrition in your body, now let's make it very clear. What do we mean by good nutrition? We're talking about, as Sister Kaylah has very clearly articulated, we're talking about foods that are high in enzymes, food that have minerals, foods that have are high in vitamins. So, in other words, macronutrients. And when we are feeding our bodies those things, then our body responds because it's life-giving. It's a life-giving force. Who wants to live when life is not going in you, right?
Right.
So when you've got life, life begets life. Death begets death. And if your food is living, then it makes you want to live. You know, people who are self-medicating with coffee, and they're trying to stimulate their brains, and what we don't realize, and no offense to anybody who might be a coffee drinker, but I'll just let you know the science. By the way, I don't promote a vegan diet. I don't promote a vegetarian diet. I don't promote a plant-based diet. What I promote is an evidence-based diet. And an evidence-based diet happens to be a plant-based diet that's a vegan diet, right?
Right.
So what we have to ask ourselves, is there life? Is there fiber? Now watch this. This is powerful. Is there life or is there fiber in meat? The answer is no, there isn't. Is there life? Is there actual fiber in cheese? The answer is no, it's not. Eggs? No, there isn't. So when we look at this thing that you just set up, Dr. Baruch, when we look at this thing, we see that when we take in fiber, plant-based foods or evidence-based foods that I'm talking about here, this is what your bacteria, your friendly bacteria, feast upon. It loves it. It is its dietary. And as you mentioned, from that Duke study, 10 to 1, we are bacteria to cells. In fact, in your gut, you have bacteria that has its own DNA. It has its own. There are several different species. In fact, if you eat meat, if you eat meat, then you have a different type of bacteria. If you eat plants, you have a different type of bacteria in your gut. So here's my point. When you take in the fiber, the bacteria that's in your gut, it feasts upon it, and then it sends a chemical response or signal to your brain and throughout your system, letting your immune cells or your inflammation cells know that everything's okay. Everything in your gut is okay. Now, those who are listening, I need you to hear this very, very clearly, for this is powerful. It sends the signal that everything is okay. If you don't have enough fiber, it doesn't give that signal. And then you have inflammatory cells that are released because your body does not know anything other than this. Is there fiber? If there is fiber, everything's okay. If there is no fiber, then the signal is only there's too much bad bacteria and you get inflammation of the system. So most people are walking around in a pro-inflammatory way, and they've got inflammation in the gut, which leads to all types of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, disease. It leads to colitis. It leads to Crohn's disease, and all of these gut diseases, leaky gut, and so forth. So fiber, and they say what happens in Vegas, talking about that Vegas nerves, what happens in Vegas. So you have to be careful what happens in Vegas and this communication between the gut and the brain.
Right. That is powerful, and I think it's lost on so many of us that we don't know how important the brain is. We don't know how important the gut is to the brain, and making that connection is really significant. And I appreciate you for doing that and validating and confirming things that I thought were true. It's really fascinating, and we're gonna jump back here in just a moment. I know you all are waiting to see our reaction to this great juice that Kaylah
I'm looking forward to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna jump back into it, but we've gotten a couple of text messages, and they want to get contact information for you, brother Ricco. Can you provide us that? We're going to have you do it again, but just for now, can you provide us with contact information on how to reach you?
Absolutely. I can be reached on my website. You can go to beehivevision.com, beehive, BEEHIVE, VISION, beehivevision.com. or you can reach me by email at Ricco, RICO .hill, HILL at thebeehives.org, and I'll spell that THEBEEHIVES.org.
Okay.
Beehivevision.org. Ricco Hill at beehivevision.org.
Okay, and I've just gotten word that we're going to be blessed with a song before we even engage the juice. So there's going to be all kinds of energy up in here, Brother Ricco. So you'll at least get a chance to experience the song, as Sister Kaylah is going to sing to us and share with us some energy that goes beyond just the juice that we'll be drinking, but we'll actually be taking in all kinds of energy all over the universe and all over the spectrum. And we know we're more than just, I think the expression is that we are spirits on a human journey. Would you agree, Brother Ricco? Did I lose you? I may have lost you. But
I just had someone who came here. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. That we're I asked you the question whether it's in fact true based on your teachings that we're spirits on a human journey.
Is that my understanding?
Is that your understanding? Yes.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. We are spiritual beings. This is just a shell, and we're to take care of it. We are to be good stewards. We are just the keepers of something. When I tell people that they need to be the CEO of their own health and the CEO of their own body, someone said to me, so in other words, be the owner of it. And I say, no, you're not the owner of it. It was lent to you. It was given to you. And your job is to be a good steward of it, to take care of it, as you are to be a good steward of your finances, to take care of your bank account, to take care of your checking and your savings account. And I like what Kaylah says. She mentioned that it's taking in the juice stores up a good bank of nutrition and goodness, and at least on the macronutrition level. And therefore, when we are as stewards of this body, we are to make sure that we are doing everything that will produce wholeness, that will give us health, because this is not our body. It is only lent to us. And if we're going to complete this journey, we need to fully understand how to take care of it.
All right, great. Well, we are going to jump now to Sister Kaylah. Hey, how are you? Awesome.
This is a song that I wrote encompassing everything we've talked about today, so I feel like it's really important.
And we need you to sing right into the mic.
All right. Raw is life, eating life, multiplied. My gadgets are inside. I'm in this new life. You got your name on this. Raw is life, eating life, multiplied. Our gadgets are inside. I'm in this new life. I've got my name on this. Thank you, internal compass. I love how I feel. I love how I feel. I love how I feel when I'm filled up with the life force. I love how I feel. I love how I feel. I love how I feel when I'm filled up with the life force. She fermented me, coconut and raspberry, served it to me as a drink, shimmering, dusty pink from the land of the fairy. She said, nah, it's from the kingdom of God. I put my hands in the soil on Sunday. I pick up trash on my morning walk with God. I ask you how to handle love. Then you turn my hand into fight once. We eye her access to this tree, how everybody has a sky, universal luxury. We travel through the food, you know. We travel through the food, you know. I am on a high all the time. I run into thoughts like earth runs into light. There is a new power
inside of me. I don't need no answers. All I need is memory. I love how I feel. I love how I feel. I love how I feel when I'm filled up with the life force.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate. That's Kaylah. This is Kaylah. Sister Kaylah is not only juicing for us today, but she's also singing for us. She's, the cipher is delivering to
Sounds
us
good.
all kinds of blessings. What you think, Brother Ricco?
I think it was beautiful.
Great. That's what's up.
Awesome.
That's what's up. Well, we're again here in the eLife Media Studios. This is the Dr. Baruch Show, and we're talking to Brother Ricco Hill. He's coming to us over the internet via Skype, and we've got also Sister Kaylah who is with us, and she is sharing all of all of her talents, be it information or singing or her juicing. In a minute, I don't know what else. And she'll do a dance for us in a minute. There it is. It's the Kaylah, entertainment and education and inner attainment, show. But you going to thinking about you, Brother Ricco, that. I think there's so many elements to healing. There's so many elements to this process. And, you've shared with us a lot, and we appreciate the energy that you've brought, and we appreciate the work that you've done and the people that you're creating out there in the world of not only just people living well, but now people teaching others and sharing with them the reality that they can live well too. And, so I applaud you. I should have asked while Kaylah was singing. I should have whispered, do you have a song for us, Brother Ricco? No.
Next time.
Next time. Okay.
It's better to do a song, as Kaylah has already demonstrated. It's better to do a song live right in the studio.
Okay, well that's twice now you've made reference to being in the studio live. So we'll have to do whatever needs to be done in order to make that happen. We'd love to have you live here in the studio. It would be a blessing to be in your presence again, but it would also be a blessing to be able to experience you and the information that you have to share live. And like you said, you get a chance to see our reaction and the reaction of the people in the restaurant who are listening to you and wondering, who is that guy? How do I get in contact with him? And one of the questions that's come up is the consultation. Do you provide consultations to folk or for folk?
Yes, all the time we do consultations, and the Bible says, freely you have received, freely give. And when we're just talking about these simple processes and simple principles that you can incorporate in your life, I do those for free. Now, people can donate to the ministry, but yeah, I do consultations all the time. And oftentimes it's something that can really be solved in a half an hour. So I do a half-hour consultation with people, just assessing what they eat, how they sleep, how they exercise, and do they exercise. But I keep alluding to the studios because fate has had me return to the DC area in a few months. I'm actually going to be moving back there, and actually moving the ministry there. So that will be an interesting occurrence.
Yes, that will be, and I look forward to being a part of whatever it is that you're making happen. I think it's a good look, and so please keep me in the loop.
Yes, absolutely.
If nothing else, a studio where you could do your broadcasting for a moment until you get your footing and you build your new, broadcast studio, or maybe we could do it together. Hey, what's up? I like that idea. But we got this juice that's sitting in front of us, and Kaylah is going to share with us what's going on with this juice. Kaylah, talk to us. So you shared with us what's in it and how it's going to benefit us. I guess now at this point it's just time to drink it, right?
It's just
I think
time
you
to
already
drink
passed
it.
that time.
Yeah, I drank it.
Everybody else drank as well.
Yeah, depending on how sweet you want it. lots of apples, more apples for taste, more apples than cabbage, and ginger to how you want it to work as a digestion tonic and how spicy you like it.
Okay, great. So this is the, and what fruit or vegetable would you name first if you named the drink and the ingredients? What would it be?
Cabbage, apple, ginger ale.
Okay, cabbage, apple, ginger ale. And I thought about it, Brother Ricco. Actually, I will be with you today because I'm doing a 30-day nothing but water as the fluid that I intake. So I'm with you today. I can smell it. I can look at it. I can tell you it looks good and it smells good. But I'll have to wait for 30 days before I can drink it. So we'll get Kaylah to come back and share with us some of this again. But everybody in the studio seems to enjoy it, so that's a good thing. I tell you what we'll do with these last couple of minutes, I want Brother Ricco, if you would once again share with us your contact information as we close out yet another really great show. This is the Dr. Baruch show with Sister Heleese. And this, I was just reminded, Heleese has another question. Please forgive me.
I'm sorry. It's kind of like a closing out question.
Okay,
so it
good.
fits the theme
Good.
of shutting things down.
Good.
But this question is for Kaylah and for you also, Mr. Hill. We know we've discussed a lot today, from medical missionaries to juicing to fasting to spiritual wellness relating to physical wellness, and our listeners may be overwhelmed. So I'm curious to know what each of you would give as advice for someone who does want to move forward with changing their lifestyle to go from sickness to health. Like, what would your regimen be, or what would your first steps be for someone who just doesn't know where to start but wants to live a better lifestyle?
Who would you like to go first?
You could go ahead first, yeah.
All right. Well, if someone is looking to make the change, I would say, first of all, to understand the principle of nutrition, understand the principle of health. And, if I usually, give this little illustration, and I'll do this in closing. If I held up these two things, in my right hand, I hold an almond. In my left, I hold a rock. And I always ask people, what is the difference between the two? If I take this rock and I put it in the ground and I cover it with dirt and put water on it, will it grow? Will it sprout a new rock? No, it won't. What's the difference? It's got minerals in it. Well, the difference is in this almond, which if I put in the dirt and covered it with water, covered it with dirt and added water to it, it would sprout and it would begin to produce a tree that would produce almonds. Why? Because the life is inside of this. Mm-hmm. If you understand nutrition, and the life is vitamins. Vita is Latin for life. So it's got both minerals and vitamins. So, to make it very simple for people, start to live life, eat life, incorporate life into your body. So, rather than saying, well, you need to go eat this plant or you need to go and juice, because, sometimes juicing is difficult for people. People don't have a juicer. What are they going to do until they get a juicer? So the simple thing to do now, absolutely, if you can get yourself a juicer, or if you can't right now, then go to Whole Foods or some other place that does it every morning and get yourself some juice. And if you can't do that, eat yourself a salad. Eat things that are dark, leafy, and green as much as possible, because they're high in magnesium. 80% of people in this country are magnesium deficient. And when you have a stressful life, you deplete your magnesium even more. And magnesium is a cofactor. In other words, it is the conductor that orchestrates every enzyme and every nutrient and every mineral, every hormone, everything that's taking place in your body. You need magnesium, and we're deficient in it. So I would say start there. Now, just because you're eating and you're not exercising, there's a story of the horse racer in 1923 who won the Bell Stakes, and he suffered a massive heart attack in the midst of the race, but the horse still won. And the moral of the story is, if your horse is working out and you're not, then you could die. So, in other words, you need to be actually exercising as well. Drinking water like Dr. Baruch. Those are the simple things that you can do daily, and just start small, start simple. Drink more water. And I would even close on this. I would recommend Whenever you're juicing like that, you have to chase it with water. Otherwise, you will overtax your kidneys. It's concentrated juice, and it's concentrated glucose, so you need more water, twice as much after you've had any kind of juice.
Okay.
Great.
Thank
Great.
you, thank
While
you.
you're there, give us your contact information again, please. Brother
Contact
Ricco.
information is Ricco, Rico, Hill, Hill, at the Beehives, make sure it's plural, TheBeehives.org.
Great. We want to thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for being on our show today. And
Thank you so much, Pat.
and again, doing the work that you're doing. And we look forward to having you as a part of the mosaic here in the DC metropolitan area. I know your reach is beyond that, but we look forward to having you here, as a resource, and also as somebody who not only can help us heal, but also help educate us, and also just vibrating that good positive energy. Coming back home, we appreciate you. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much again, Brother Ricco.
Thank you all. God bless you guys.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.
And we're going to jump now to Kaylah. And Kaylah, you're just multi-talented, aren't you? You just got it all. You sing, you dance, because you were gonna dance, but we and you know about food, and you talked a little bit earlier on about how you went to Hawaii in search of kind of balance and detoxification and recovery. And how do you feel about that? Now you're back in DC. Do you feel like, Hawaii is going to be in your future, or do you think you got what you needed to get, and now it's just a matter of, continuing with what you got out of Hawaii?
I have to go back to Hawaii, not necessarily to live, but I feel like I want to create a haven. I'm part of building a self-sustainable community right now in Hawaii with the Center for Living with Nature. And it is basically that hospital, what I was telling you about, with the total detox paradise on a grander scale. And I feel like I'm at the beginning of all of this nutrition and at this healthy lifestyle. And working there, I learned the first phase. I learned maintenance. But, I learned maintenance. I didn't learn the actual medicine yet. There's levels to this that I really want to get deeper into. So I do see myself going back to Hawaii. My mission here, as the days go on and starting to reveal itself, I do feel that the violence in this city is really caused by the diet. And not caused, but at least we can really turn this around. I think it's biochemical. I think it's biochemical, and there are so much more solutions to handle it and to create a solution that's even greater than what we could even think about. That's going to give you everything. That's going to give us everything that we want. I do want to answer the question about what's the takeaway from our show, and what Dr. Ricco was talking about when he put his mom on a whole food diet. There is a great documentary by the doctor that he mentioned, T. Colin Powell, called Plant Pure Nation. And what they did, they went to the unhealthiest cities all over America. I mean, some straight fried chicken salad. They went to Kentucky, Texas,
Mississippi.
Yeah, they went to the get. And they totally sponsored a 10-day diet for people who were on medication and who were really unhealthy, diabetes, heart problems, all of the health problems that are happening in our community, and they sponsored it. And so basically you have an entire whole food diet for 10 days for free that people came and they took part in, and it was amazing the results.
Sure.
Amazing. In 10 days, one woman got completely off of her medication in 10 days. And it sounds so, so you're going to give me some plants and you're going to give me some berries and I'm just going to be off of this. But it was amazing, just these testimonials of all of these skeptics that were like, whatever, I guess, it's free, so I'm going to do it. Like,
right.
And they did it, and there was not one person, and it was so transparent. And there wasn't one person that regretted doing it. Everyone improved in one way or another, the whole way or a little bit, but everyone took progress to becoming the Olympic version of themselves. So in something where the listeners could really start to do it on their own, I would say do your best to inspire yourself. Watch these documentaries, have a mind for yourself. However, these documentaries are really informative. Plant Pure Nation, Cowspiracy is another one. Also, whole food cooking classes that happens at the Y and at the community centers all around the country. At Everlasting Life.
Mm-hmm.
And also on YouTube, it's channel after channel, and these foods are so pretty. And sometimes we feel like, and I'm coming from, pork chops, ribs, mackerel. That is what I grew up on. And, my family is from the Caribbean, and it's steak and it's rice. And I feel like what made the transition easier is you can't take something away from me without giving me something immediately after. So I don't feel it's about taking away, dropping out, I'm going to start tomorrow. It's slowly, gradually adding in your one juice a day. It's adding in these healthy foods so that the bad stuff can naturally make its way out. Because at the same time, if you stress it, you want to be at peace with it all. And you want to make peace with even the toxins that are going to leave. Like, everything's alive. So I would definitely recommend that, to not get in the mind frame of every time you eat something, ice cream, or anytime you eat something that's not going to feed you truly, that you're going to feel bad about it. Definitely respect your own pace, respect your own process, and invite these new foods in. And so gradually your focus becomes on the good food. Also, if you don't have a juicer, juices, I'm paying $12, $13 for a 32-ounce juice if I'm outside. But what I also do is I go to my local juice bar and I talk to the owner, or I talk to somebody there. If I bring my own vegetables, can you just charge me $3, $4 to just juice it for me real quick? Because they have these big industrial juicers where it's literally 45 seconds if they just put it through. And so now I pay $2. So yes, Market even sometimes does it for me for free. I pay $2. I bring my own vegetables, and sometimes I was bringing in Hawaii. I was bringing vegetables in from the farm, and that I got for free, or that I got in exchange for working with the plants. And I pay $2, and I have a bomb juice right there.
There you go.
And gut health is, I think, that's one of my greatest allies, really. I really encourage probiotics, sauerkraut. Your sauerkraut has a lot of B vitamins, and it really protects and gives a lot of life to guts. I don't know how everyone's gonna feel about this, but my enema bag is my best friend. Like, colonics and enemas really do promote a clear mind, and I think it's worth a try.
Great.
To go to a colonic bar, or even getting an enema bag. Well, I started with the colonics first, just to get it. But there's a great 101 book that I love, and that every single naturopath doctor that I've talked to, the principles are pretty aligned with this book. Nothing I've heard yet contradicts anything in this book. The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel P. Reed. That was given to me at the drum circle here in DC, and this brother gave it to me, and I was like, okay, and I read it, and that's really what sparked. It talks about raw food, it talks about juicing, it has an appendix in there about every single disease, a lot of the common diseases in our community, what juices cures them. It's a great 101, very simple to read, and it's from an American that lived 20 years in China, and then he's came back to write the book. So the book is called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel P. Reed.
Great. Well, we want to thank you for coming on board. And
Thank you for having me.
Heleese, do you have anything you want to say as we move to close?
Well, thank you definitely for coming. I've been taking my little notes down and jotting everything down so far. One thing that you said that I really appreciate is how you said to work at your own pace, because I am the type of person that's like, I want to do everything right starting now, and it's kind of impossible to do that. So just having patience with yourself and embracing the process in order to make it a lifestyle instead of it just becoming, a diet for a few days or a couple weeks. Making it truly a lifestyle so that you could benefit yourself and then branch on to helping others. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Great. And I want to thank everybody in our viewing and listening audience out there. We appreciate your continued support. We ask that you post and share and like and follow us on all of the social media platforms. And of course, you're looking at this right now, so please share it with all your friends, family, and loved ones. We know it can benefit them all. I think that is it for now. Actually, tomorrow, I just want to let you all know at 11 o'clock, I'll be interviewing a brother by the name of Dr. Gabri Amlak. And we're also going to have a guest who has been on the show. We're going to have Brother Harris come back on, and he's going to talk to us about some of his great information, his great philosophy.